Giving all praises to the Most High, whose true name in Hebrew is Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, whose true name in Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, which is the Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, and the Holy Spirit, who taught us his truth. Honors to the brethren that's laboring doing the work to push the gospel, risking their life and freedom to do so. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, which will be 1/3 of us Israelites, according to the scriptures, who will be the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Seminole Indians, who are seeking their salvation by returning back to the Most High, by hearing and believing his word, so that he will have mercy on us in judgment. So we back with another lesson through the power and spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. This lesson is going to be titled, Remember the Help from Heaven. Hey, this is going to be part one. I think I'm going to do a series of these, calling to mind different accounts in the scriptures when our ancestors, received help from heaven and was delivered out of all kinds of different scenarios. They was delivered from execution. They was delivered from the sword, delivered from pestilence, and delivered from famine, and from various destructions. So again, this is remember the help from heaven. And I guess I'll pull this precept. This is Second Maccabees 15:8. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which cometh to them from the Almighty. Yeah, in this account here, I guess let me continue real quick. So yeah, we exhorting our people to remember the help from heaven in these times of trouble that we're coming into. So we're gonna hit Romans 15:4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we, through the patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope. So yeah, the things written in this book, Old Testament, Apocrypha, New Testament, that was all written for our learning today in this lifetime. But only those who will be comforted will be those who truly have faith. And those who truly have faith, they can hope in the things that were written. Yeah, because when we read these different accounts, we see how the Lord delivered our people from all kinds of different scenarios. And in that, we have hope, knowing that when we put in all kinds of different uh, adversities and situations, we know that there is a way out. But you can only know the different accounts and know how the Lord will deliver us, is if you read, or if you've at least been taught, these different accounts. Ecclesiastes 1:9, the thing that have been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. Things that are past can be the things of the future. They gotta say history repeats itself, and there is no new thing under the sun. Yeah, that's for the good and bad. But in this case, we're talking about the miracles, the deliverance. All that's coming back in a major way. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It had been already of old time, which was before us. So yeah, when we deliver from these different situations and scenarios, those on the outside, it's gonna be a new thing to them. Yeah, it's a new thing in this lifetime what the Lord about to do, but it's not a new thing to the earth. It happened before in the times of old, which were before us. And in this part one right here, I want to go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 11. And I was thinking on this on my vacation. People know, well, very few people know I spent a week in Mexico, in the heart of Mexico, like down to the Central America. And I know very, very little Spanish. But, And that's my third time going. And my each time I go out there, what's revealed to me is the power of language. Language is a very powerful tool. You know what I'm saying? Knowing how to communicate with others or not knowing how to communicate with others. So, for example, you could have all the money in the world, all the wisdom, all the tools at your disposal. But if you can't communicate with others, you're useless, you helpless. And I was in a helpless situation out there in Mexico. I went out there with family. So I had, people to speak for me. I was taken care of, but I was really helpless out there. I was really at the mercy of others. Mercy is ultimately from the Most High, but I was out of bounds. Completely helpless. I had money, etc., but I was completely hopeless, just not knowing how to communicate. And the Lord first showed the power of languages and not being able to communicate in the book of Genesis. So let's call this back to mind. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a home, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people was one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them that they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down there and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the whole earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of the city called Babel, because the Lord did there confound their language of all the earth. And from thence the Lord scattered them abroad from the face of all the earth. So the Lord confounded their language. So the Lord diversified the speech of the different nations of people. They couldn't understand one another. So that's why I say, me being out there in Mexico or just not being able to communicate with others in a different language, you pretty helpless and useless. No matter how much money, no matter how much strength, no matter what kind of tools you got, if you can't communicate, you render useless. And why are we bringing this up? Well, let's hit the book of um, Revelation 12 and 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yahweh Shai. So yeah, that's the dragon. Esau, the white man and his foreign forces coming to make war with the people of Israel, more specifically those in the truth. Now let's also hit Isaiah 59 and 19. So shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. So yeah, the enemy is coming in like a flood. When you consider a flood, there's waves, killer drones, mechanical dogs, Esau's foot soldiers, then the tanks, then the Air Force. And we know Esau has the most diverse military in all the earth. So that's his foreign forces, that great multitude. The heathen that's fighting alongside Esau. So why did we bring out Genesis 11 concerning the Tower of Babel and how the Lord confounded their speech? Well, When you go back to Genesis 11:6, and the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them." So as long as the people was able to understand one another, they was able to work. You know, they was able to work with one another. Well, the enemy's coming in like a flood. So what? They all on one accord. They all fighting for the same cause, to do away with us Israelites. Well, guess what? Let's say the enemy does come in like a flood. You know, Esau's military, his foreign forces, all these foreigners that's coming over here, they got to be able to communicate with one another. Man, who's to say? Well, let's say it like this: the Lord confounded the speech of the people of the earth before. The Lord can do it again. So let's say you being surrounded by all kinds of troops and military equipment and AI robotic technology. You know, it's a group effort. Well, somebody is going to have to give orders. Somebody is going to have to receive orders. To execute the attack. Well, guess what? If the Lord could found a speech mid battle, they can't understand one another in order to give orders or to receive orders. It's going to be a failed mission. They're not going to be able to execute that attack. And in that moment, when they not able to understand one another, that might be our window of opportunity to escape. Going back to Isaiah 59:19. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. Standard in the Blue Letter Bible goes into being able to escape, turning invisible, or being able to defend yourself. So, if all these different nations and Esau's military and foreign troops, UN soldiers and killer robots, killer drones, if they coming after us, but the Lord confound their speech, they can't understand one another. That may provide us with just enough time to escape. The Lord confounded their speech before, he can do it again. Or for example, they may be working on their electrical devices, you know, to communicate, give orders, receive orders, execute an attack. Or let's say that the orders that they giving and receiving are supposed to be in a certain language. Let's say the Chinese supposed to be receiving orders in Chinese on their electrical devices, but the Lord jammed the signal, the transmission, and make their orders come in some kind of African language, some kind of language that they can't understand, to give and to receive orders. Well, they're not going to be able to execute that plan. So the Lord could not only confound the speech, but he can also jam and intercept these transmission signals and probably jumble the speeches there on the electrical devices. Doing what? Lifting up a standard against us that we may escape. So they're going to have all this military equipment, all this weaponry, all this artificial intelligence, all this firepower. But if they can't communicate with one another, they're going to be rendered useless. You know? Because again, you can have all the power, all the wealth, all the might. But if you can't communicate, you useless as a baby. And that's what I realized being out there in Mexico. And then think about the things written aforetime. The Lord confounded the language, confounded the speech. The Lord can do that again. Not only what they speak verbally, but what they send out in a text or an email via these electrical devices. Doing what? Giving us a window of opportunity to escape. Now we just been delivered from a situation, to continue here on the earth. So I think we should expect that. Expect, you know, Esau to come at us, in a group effort, but expect them in certain situations to not be able to communicate. Or their devices is supposed to be giving orders in one language, but they receive it in another language. So yeah, and we're gonna hit this going to First Maccabees chapter 3. Go ahead, verse 19. For the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of a host, but strength come from heaven. So what this is saying, there's a saying in the earth, there's strength in numbers. But that ain't necessarily the case. The strength come from heaven, not from numbers. And what was going on in the Tower of Babel? It said all of the earth was of one language. And the people felt like, they could do anything. And the Lord said nothing would be restrained from them. Nothing will hold them back. Well, how did the Lord hold them back? By confounding their speech that they couldn't communicate with one another. Well, they're gonna be held back in this lifetime by the Lord confounding their speech, jamming the transmission signals for them to give and receive orders, confounding the speech there on the electrical devices, doing what? To restrain them, to hold them back. In the Tower of Babel, they thought they had strength in numbers. Well, what good is numbers? What good is weaponry? What good is all this power and might if you can't understand one another? Because that's the weakness. There's strength in numbers, but there's a weakness. Everybody have to be on one accord. They have to move in unison. Well, if the Lord can break that up with something as simple as confounding the speech, that great multitude, all them numbers, all that weaponry is considered useless. Yeah, yeah. So the Lord about to do a great work. And we just gonna hit this one real quick. Habakkuk 1 and 5. Behold ye among the heathen and regard and wonder marvelously, for I will work a work in your days which ye will not believe, though it be told to you. So yeah, look at everything at the generations of old, everything the Lord has done. He can and will do it for us in this generation on a much bigger level. So yeah, this is remember to help. Number one, confounding the speech, confounding the language. Title is something like that. Till next time, Shalom.